So now we are recording. It is June 5th, and this is week one, day one of business communications. I'm really glad to see we have 25 people in here. That is awesome. This is a huge class. Classes usually aren't this big, but I think we have a whole lot of Surge Tech students in here. Isn't that right? Okay. And
Yep.
is anybody, you'll go through classes with us, just a few, and then you'll start your on-ground Surge Tech classes, I believe. That's what the schedule usually looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, so awesome. Awesome. All right, so I am going to start out by pretending like I know what I'm. There we go. I'm going to share my screen with everyone. Now, this first class is usually just so everybody knows how things work, how to get around in Canvas, where to look on Cengage, all that other mess. So I know we have some returning students. I've had class before. We have a re-enroll, I thought. Who was my re-enroll? Somebody remind me. Is she in here? She'd already graduated and is coming back for something else.
Oh, I think that's me you're talking about. I did medical billing and coding before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. All right, so which is awesome. And what are you doing now, Caitlin?
Like for what am I coming back for?
Yes.
Surgical tech.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, everybody should be able to see my screen. This should be your home screen. I am going to do a thing I do, which is student view. So you don't see all the mess I have everywhere. This is what you guys should see when you pull up Canvas. Okay. I know you, for your new students, you've worked in Canvas a little bit during CLD. This is a little bit different, so we'll go through it. On the home page, you're going to see all your to-dos here on the right-hand side. I have this set up where it will automatically send you an email day of. And so like if you have assignments due and the first thing on Wednesday and Sunday mornings, you'll get a reminder email. And then I think 5:30 o'clock at night on Mondays, you'll get a reminder email as well that there's a class that night. So maybe that'll help everyone along. So on your home page, you scroll down. This is the book cover, actually. I started changing the picture on here to the book covers when I do a class. So some of them may not still be book covers, but as I get to them, Bob and Brandy and I, we rotate through our classes. There's 19 of them, but I don't always get to teach all of them. There are many classes that we kind of take ownership of. I do business math and business communications. Bob does business law and capstone. Brandy will do human resources, and I think marketing, because those are like our favorite classes to teach. So we try to keep all those. You have a description of the class. And right here, you're going to see there, this is to the Zoom meeting, which you should have in your email as well. On instructor, here's the instructor information. And you click on that. You should get a picture. Oh, my picture's not working correctly. Well, you guys lucked out. I may or may not fix that. So, and you will see there's my office phone. I'm going to change this text number. I had to redo my phone. This was a Google number. It's been kind of a pain in the butt to get back right. But I will make sure you guys have a text number, and then you have my email. And the best way to get a hold of me is through an email, unless it's some sort of emergency. I can't imagine, what can't wait till later. But unless you guys need bail or an Uber home. And don't laugh, Alexis. I've been called for a lot stranger things by students. Oh, Alicia. So you can also get to the syllabus, my Facebook page for this. Let's see what else. There's this article, which I know all people who's had me before have seen this article. No, I'm not a big fan of online articles, but this is a pretty good one on just some tips how to be a little more successful in these online classes. Um, Online classes are a different animal, and you have to have a certain amount of discipline to make sure that you can get these things turned in on time and done on time. These classes are short; they're 4 weeks long, so they can jump up and bite you in the rear if you don't stay on top of them. So that's why I always tell people, try not to get behind, because if you're week 4 and you're trying to catch up a whole lot of work, it becomes really brutal, really. And we understand things happen. You have kids, you have jobs, you have cars and houses and all sorts of things like that. Most people, people that had me before know I had. I mean, personal stuff happens. We had our house burned down at the end of January, so crap happens, and you can't help it. Um, when you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, the house is on fire. That's a whole sort of thing. I did get the wife and the dog out. Everybody was fine, and I'm forever grateful that my wife didn't wake up first, because I do believe she would have let me sleep. True story. So, of these 21 steps, and we're just going to kind of hit some of these quick. When the link is on that homepage, look through it. It's nothing you don't already know, but it just puts it in order in a readable format where you can kind of remind yourself, some of the things you need to do. Set a major goal. You've already done that. You're here, right? So that's part of it. Treat study like a job, and I always like to add a job you like. All right. Not that you had when you were 16 and working at McDonald's after school. That job sucked. Or for me, it was Mazio's. Study plan, manage your time, all that's important. Dedicated study blocks. Set back some time every day, every other day, whatever you need. Block it off, and we'll talk about distractions here in a minute. With no distractions, no kids, parents, whatever can help you guys out, and just sit back and get the work done. And part of this article will also tell you, try to beat the deadlines. It's much better if the work's due on Wednesday to have it done Monday night or Tuesday night, right? You don't want to push it till the very end, because then you're hitting me for an extension on. It was midnight hit, and I was only halfway done, and that is that's an actual thing that happens. Find a quiet space now, and it says quiet space and eliminate distractions. I do tell people, I used to have a business partner, and her and I were complete opposites. When she was doing a project or working, she would like close off in her office, and everything had to be completely quiet and silent. Me, it is a distraction. If it's too quiet, then I just can't seem to get whatever project work done I'm doing. So I'm one of the guys who always has a podcast or music or something playing in the background, just so I can concentrate. So yes, find a quiet space, eliminate distractions. But quiet, if you're like me and quiet is a distraction, then no problem, Caitlin, and I got you covered. Where she's at, I just give her a thumbs up. Limit social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you kids are using these days. I think Facebook's for old people like me, but it is a time waster. So limit up. Breakdown tasks is always one I like to talk about, which is how do you eat an elephant? Tracy, not orientation. No, Tracy. Orientation is a whole nother thing. And the reason I do this on Monday nights is I like to get it done first thing during the week and give the rest of the week to do whatever we have to do. A lot of people like to do it on Tuesdays, but also a lot of holidays fall on Mondays. And when that happens, and oops, we don't have class. So, it wasn't designed by me to be an excuse not to have class, but
I went in through the email one and it brought me here.
oh yeah. It's all the
so-
same, and it's always going to be the same Zoom link. Always.
Okay, well, I'll duck out.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? Don't look at this class as just this one great big pile of garbage that you're going to have to sift through. Just stay up on it, one step at a time. You're going to have this week, you have 2 things due on Wednesdays, 2 things due on Sundays. Starting next week, we're going to add in our discussion questions. Okay. So only make 1 thing due on Sunday night. And we'll cover discussion questions in a moment. Time check, we're doing pretty excellent. Take notes. Well, it's a little different in the in this day and age of taking notes, since this is being recorded. Make stuff enjoyable. Take breaks are productive, guys. Breaks are productive. You can only sit down and make yourself concentrate. Well, sometimes you can't even do that, but you can only sit down and do this for a certain amount of time before you have to take a break. Okay. Just what on mine, let's see here, where are we at? I'm trying to find meet deadlines, reward yourself. I'm trying to find which one I'm at here. What I do is, a lot of people is they may do it based on time. I do it based on projects. Once again, there's numerous different ways to do it. But if I know I want to take a break, then I'm going to say I'm going to take a break as soon as I finish this task here. When I send out these 10 emails, and then I'll go take my break. Some people are like, well, I'm going to do my work 30 minutes, then take the break. Whatever works for you. I just can't leave a task in the middle. My OCD goes insane, and then my entire plan is blown. So do what's best for you, and then connect with others. You have 37 people in this class. You have access to their emails. You can be on the chat here. If you want to get a study group together, whether it's online or whatever, email, do that. I mean, their study groups got me through my second bachelor's, actually, through engineering school. That was one that 2, 3, 4, 5 heads were way better than one. Because when you're running through Calc 2 and Physics 2 and statics, and you feel like your brains explode, sometimes it helps people understand a little differently, can maybe explain a little differently than the book or the teacher. So help each other. That's 1000% allowed. Okay, and reward yourself, because you deserve it. In fact, after this class, after this 1 hour, you will definitely do it. Go have a candy bar, beer, whatever you need. All right, so we have come to that. Now, also, people who have me before know I'm a huge Jordan Peterson fan. I know somebody's going to roll their eyes. I'm looking. But one of the reasons I like him for this class is he's a very, very, very effective communicator. So I've got a couple of videos here that we'll sit through. And I'm to share my sound. And the first one is what it's called is Here's Why It's So Bloody Hard to Sit Down and Get Work Done. It's just a little clip from one of his lectures that doesn't really give you any answers, but it does give you some insight into why it's so hard to sit down and get your work done. But in a different vein, since this is communications class, pay attention to what he does, all right, and how he communicates with his students on there, because that is, he's just really, really, really good at it. So, all right, I am going to start that video. Before we get any further, any questions, concerns, comments, anything?
I
Everybody's
actually
good?
do have a quick question.
Yes,
So this week, we're not going to start the discussions, but we will next week.
absolutely. What it is we're doing that grammar diagnostic, that first assignment, and so I changed that out in lieu of discussions. But you can always, everybody knows you can always do everything early. In fact, you know, people who've had other things going on, I think Lorraine was one of them, if she's still in here. She has some stuff going on, and she like knocked out the class in the first 2 weeks and really got her head down, sweat rolling. So yes, you can do all that. All right, well, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let him do some talking for me for about 5 minutes and 36 seconds.
Your attention, for example, is mediated by unconscious forces. And you know that perfectly well. And this is another Freudian observation. You know, if you're sitting down to study, for example, your conscious intent is to study. But you know perfectly well that all sorts of distraction fantasies are going to enter the theater of your imagination non-stop and annoyingly. And there isn't really a lot you can do about that except maybe wait it out. You know, so you'll be sitting there reading and your attention will flicker away. You'll think about, I don't know, maybe you want to watch Jane the Virgin on Netflix or something like that, or maybe it's time to have a peanut butter sandwich, or you should get the dust bunnies out from underneath the bed, or it's time to go outside and have a cigarette, or maybe it's time for a cup of coffee, or it's like all these subsystems in you that would like something aren't very happy just to sit there while you read this thing that you're actually bored by, and so they pop up and try to take control of your perceptions and your actions non-stop. Maybe you think, well, this is a stupid course anyways, why do I have to read this damn paper, and what am I doing in university, and what's the point of life? It's like you can really get going if you're trying to avoid doing your homework, and then you might think, well, what is it in you that's trying to avoid? Because after all, you took the damn course and you told yourself to sit down. Why don't you listen? Well, because you're a mess. That's basically why. You haven't got control over yourself at all. And no more than I have control over this laptop. Okay, so there's the memory function of the unconscious, and there's the dissolutive function. That's an interesting one. The unconscious contains habits, once voluntary, now automatized, and dissociated elements of the personality, which may lead a parasitic existence. That's an interesting one. I would relate that more to procedural memory. You know, so what you've done is practice certain habits, whatever they might be. Let's call them bad habits. And you like those things to get under control, but you can't. So maybe when you're speaking, for example, you use like and you know, and you say a lot. And you've practiced that, so you're really good at it. And you'd like to stop it, but you don't get to, because you've built that little machine right into your being, right? It's neurologically wired, and it's not under conscious control. And anything you practice becomes that. It becomes part of you, and that's another element of the unconscious, a different part. And then there's a creative part, which is that, well, you know, you're sitting around and maybe you're trying to write something, or maybe you want to produce a piece of art or a piece of music, or maybe you're just laying in bed dreaming and you have all these weird ideas, and especially in dreams, it's like, where do those things come from? And even more strange, one of the things that's really weird about dreams, and almost impossibly weird, is that you're an observer in the dream. It's like a dream is something that happens to you. Well, you're dreaming it, theoretically, so how is it that you can be an observer it's almost like you're watching a video game or a movie, but you're producing it, at least in principle, although the psychoanalysts would say, well, no, not exactly. Your ego isn't producing it. Your unconscious is producing it. It's a different thing. It's a different thing. And of course, Jung would say, well, it's deeper than that. The collective unconscious might be producing it. It's in some sense, it isn't you exactly, or it isn't the you that you think of when you think of you. And that's the ego from the Freudian perspective, the you that you identify with. That's the ego. And outside of that is the unconscious. The id, that's more the place of impulses, and you could think about those as the biological subsystems that can derail your thinking, right? And that govern things like hunger and sex and aggression, and your basic instincts is another way of putting it. And it's a reasonable way of thinking about it, because these are subsystems that you share with animals. You share them certainly with mammals. You share most of them with reptiles. You share a lot of them with amphibians, and even going all the way down to crustaceans. There's commonality, for example, in the dominance hierarchy circuits. And so these are very, very old things. And the idea that you're in control of them is, well, you're not exactly in control of them. And I would say the less integrated you are, the less you're in control of them, and the more they're in control of you. And that can get really out of hand, you know. You can be like with people who have obsessive compulsive disorder, for example, which seems to be, I would say, the dissolutive elements in some sense of the unconscious, the way that it's portrayed here. Poor people with obsessive compulsive disorder, they can spend half their time doing things that they can't really control, and they have very strong impulses to do them, and it's very hard on them to block them. You know, they'll almost panic if those things are blocked. And then you have people with Tourette's syndrome, you know, that they'll be doing all sorts of weird dances and spouting off obscenities and imitating people without being able to control it, and sometimes a little bit of antipsychotic medication can dampen that down, but it's as if there are these autonomous semi-spirits inside of them that grip control over their behavior and make them do things. And you know, you find that to some degree in your own life, because maybe you've become very attracted to someone, even maybe you don't want to be attracted to the person, and then you find yourself, you know, texting them when you know perfectly well that you should be going to bed, and you know, you're in a grip of something, and you can't control it, and that's all part of the unconscious and all part of what Freud was studying.
All right. So anyway, I know I always find that video interesting, and I've seen it 1,000 times. I know a lot of you guys have seen it, you know, a few times, but that just kind of the insight on why it's so hard to sit down and make yourself do what you need to do. And so, like the article that I showed you before, there are, you know, little tricks in there to help you kind of control or manage yourself. And you know, when I teach management class, one of the things I also tell people, you know, is managing people is one thing, but managing yourself, which is the first thing you have to do, is probably the most difficult. So, you know, and you guys are here for a reason, and it starts here, especially you search tech students. And I always warn them, you know, it may seem a little more lax here, but when you get into those on-ground surge tech classes, those guys don't play around, and for good reason. I mean, you know, if you make a mistake in an operating room, that's, you know, that could make someone sicker, that could kill somebody, that could cost the hospital and insurance companies, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, for a mistake. And so they're definitely stepping up a notch from here. So I'd like, you know, if we can get everybody kind of up to a certain level here, so there's a smaller step when it comes up next. Otherwise, you know, it could be a real a shock to the system. And you know, we get people through these courses sometimes, help them out as best we can, but when they hit that surge tech, it's completely different. So not to scare you, but to kind of warn you, hey guys, you really got to take that this seriously, because it's going to come up on you at some point. All right, so we've done that. Okay, so let's talk about, now you can go get to your assignments through different ways. There's modules, There's the discussions, which are their own thing. There's also the assignments. So if you start here in modules, all right, modules has a little bit of extra stuff in it. Okay. A link to the, I believe this is the book. Make sure. Click it once. Well, crap. We can do that. I forget that when I'm on as a student, it doesn't do the same thing. So, also you have some helpful tips for Canvas. All right, these are all your Cengage stuff. This should take you to your dashboard when it comes to the class, and then you're going to have in each module, here's participation and attendance, which the points you get tonight will go towards this. It is, think of this class 10% of your grade. Otherwise, if you miss this, you have to go back to the video and do a summary of what we covered in class in order to get those points. Yeah, week one assignments. Week 2, some extra videos on writing. Week 2 assignments, and it just goes on and on. Some more for week 3, more extra stuff. Week 3 assignments, week 4, and then week 4 assignments. Now, if you're just looking for your assignments, you're not looking for anything extra, just go to assignments and they get lined up, number one, by upcoming assignments. So these are the next things you have due. You'll see it's due on June 7th, all right, by 11:59 p.m. All right, so you have 2 things due Wednesday, then you have chapter 2 and 3 due on Sunday. The next week, here's our classroom, here's classroom participation, which is what you're getting points for today. Then on week 2, on Wednesday, you have chapter 4 and 6 due. And we're going to talk about discussions. Part of your discussion is due. And that's why on Sundays, you only have 1 Applia assignment due, because there's the discussions that have to be turned in. And that goes from week to week to week to week. So the discussions are as follows. All right, see, it starts on week 2, 3, and 4. So you don't have to worry about a discussion this week. Many people are probably already jumping up and down and happy with that. You'll notice it has a date of, there's a due date on here. It's up here on the right-hand corner, due June 18th. Now, that's on a Sunday. How it's really due is the original discussion, your original post is due on Wednesdays. And then your 2 peer responses to someone else's post are due on that Sunday. And the reason we do it like that is if you get it all due by Wednesday, if you get your original post due by Wednesday and so do other people, then you have something to respond to between Wednesday and Sunday. Otherwise, if everybody tries to cram it in on Sunday, they don't always have something to respond to. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's a 300-word minimum for your original post due on Wednesdays, a 100-word minimum for each response, which would be 100 times 2 on Sundays. I know many people hate writing, and these are things that hang people up. Now, after you do the required reading here on your book, then there's going to be a video, and you're just going to answer the questions here in your post. Now, this is a pretty funny video. This is one of Bob's favorite, so I'll play it real quick anyway.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just.
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have
Anyway, so that's always a good one. And I have learned, you know, over the last 3 decades of being married, that when my wife wants to have a conversation, I do now preface it with, is this a you want me to listen conversation, or is this you want me to fix it conversation? And so we know from the go, you know, which path I'm supposed to take, because unless you spell it out for me, I do happen to be a man. Well, I think we have another one here, Mark, wherever you're at. We're pretty clueless when it comes to things like that. So you have to give us a roadmap. So I just found it's just there to ask, you know, what are the expectations of me? Now, that being said, then you answer, you know, in here, was it due to some type of interference? Was the problem with encoding? Well, we'll go to the book, we'll know what encoding is. What feedback might be given to eliminate the problem, we'll pull the nail out, of course, and so you just move through here, because although it is a funny video, you know, it does kind of exemplify, you know, many of the problems that people have when it comes to trying to communicate with each other. And because we don't always speak the same language. You know, you're telling me something in the way you understand it, and I'm receiving it in the way I understand it. Somewhere in the middle, information gets lost. You know, you might as well be speaking another language, even if it is in English. And one thing I do tell my wife sometimes, like, you're just making stuff up now, and she really loves that. So there's our discussion starting next week. You know how to get to the assignments. Grades. So when things are graded, they will show up here. They will give you a score, and you will see what you've made on each one of these, and your total grade up to that point. If something's not due yet, it doesn't count for or against you. All right. So when things are due on Wednesday, and people, I've seen them have it before, you know, they've had an 80 in the class and they don't do their work for some reason. And then Thursday hits, I put grades in, and they have a couple of zeros, and all of a sudden they've got a 69, and they're, you know, going, what the heck happened? I just had a B. Well, you know, that's how it works. As it comes due, your grade's going to change, either up or down, or even stay the same, depending on it. So classroom participation attendance, where you're at, here's where 10% of your grades, that's one letter grade. Discussions, they have some teeth here, guys. That is 25% of your grade. So if you show up to every class, do every assignment perfectly, and make 100 on every one of your Cengage assignments, and you don't do any discussions, the best you can do is a C. So you'll hear me pre-discussions in about every class. Kelly knows. I see Kelly over here. She's just like, you got to get them done, don't you, Kelly? And then your Cengage assignments are 65%. So they are very important too. So let's look at the first assignment. And this is going to be your grammar and mechanics pre-course diagnostic. Oh, I'm sorry, I was in grades. I have to go through assignments. Now the first one. There's going to be another button. When you hit that, oh, it's not going to go through. Hold on. Nope. I'm going to have to stop for just a moment. Here we go. Leave student view. That's the only way to work for me. Okay, load. There we go. Okay, Cengage comes up, MindTap comes up, your assignment comes up. Give it a minute. Now, the one thing about this class is, and here it is. Each one of your sections here, there are 14 sections. First has 5 questions. Second section has 2. This one has 8. Okay. Now, what I can say is this is a diagnostic test. It is to see where you're at. So don't get stressed out about how you do it on this one. All right. Here's what I'll kind of wait to tell people who show up. So people who don't show up, they can sweat it a little bit, which is do the best you can on this. But at the end of the week, if you've done this, then you'll get the full 103 points. Okay, so I'm going to look at it and see kind of where you're at on these little sections, and then I'll go ahead and make sure you guys get your full points on them. So don't make it a stressful thing. All right, but please do your best. And some of these, man, I took this thing, it about kicked my butt the first time I took it. I hadn't taught a communications class in a while, and I said, well, I got one coming up next week. I'll go ahead and take it. So this is not for the faint of heart. Now, once you're done and it's all graded, you're fine. Now, if you click the X here, though, this is going to take you to a different place. Here in Cengage, you're going to find all your work, Cengage work. So you don't have to go through Canvas once you're here. You can just go through chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And notice these are your ones that counts for grade, or the one with the little orange buttons. You can also go to your filter to count towards grade, and yours is going to look a little different than mine, actually. This one I can. It is not. Sometimes I can show you from student view on here as well. But there you have a filter that way. It only pops up what counts for grade. Now, and you'll also see your due dates on here. I distracted myself now. So I have no idea where I was going with this, but and it is broken down by weeks. So week 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Let me take the filter off. There's extra stuff in here. There's videos. You can also access your book. Here's the other thing, and a lot of people don't ever listen. I had to learn this the hard way as well. If you're going to go chapter 1, sit down and read chapter 1. You don't have to memorize it. You don't have to, just sit down and give it a good once over read. That way, when you go to do the work and you want to flip through your book and find the answers, you've already been exposed to the material. If you try to open up chapter 1 and then do the questions and read through it and try to find it at the same time, it takes you 3 times longer than if you took the time to read the book and do it. It just does. And I said, that's just personal experience. It's bit me in the butt more than one time trying to shortcut it when it's really not a shortcut. So yep, here is this. Got the 3 dots, and you can jump to just about anywhere you need to. There we go, chapter 1. And by the way, guys, when you see me looking over this, I'm actually running 2 screens. I have my laptop in front of me and I have a bigger screen over here. I do forget, and I think Kelly should remind me that if you can't see what I'm doing, I can make it a little larger for you, because it's a pretty good size monitor. So if you have access to a second monitor, you know, you have a desktop or something at home and you have access to a second monitor, I always say using 2 monitors is like being, first time I did it was like being let out of a cage. It's just, everything was so much better with 2 different workspaces. So if you have the opportunity to do that, that is awesome. Okay, now I remember where I was at. Thank you. Now the difference with this is it is Cengage, which is what we use. It is MindTap, which is what is used for every class except for business math. It's also Applia, and Applia is kind of a pain for everybody. Because I don't have any way to give you more than 1 shot at each assignment. The only way to do that is if you're unhappy with the score you make, you email me. I have to go in and delete out that first try and give you another shot at it. All right. I've read everything I could on it. I went to the FAQ section. I've talked to people at Cengage. I've tried to find somewhere around it. Bob and Brandon and I have all went through everything. It's just the way Applia works. There's a few classes that use it. So just shoot me an email. For some reason, you get distracted, whatever, you don't like your score, shoot me an email. I won't do it without permission because I will be erasing your previous score. And so that's why I make you ask me, because I'm not just going to go in there and do it if your score looks bad. Because I just won't do it without permission. That's just kind of not a cool thing to do. So anyway, so there's Cengage. You can also go to, I believe it is cengage.net. And you can log in to Cengage from there as well. So you have multiple ways to do the same thing. All right, and so far everybody's working. Everybody's stuff is working. I think Tracy may be gone. She was having a few issues. It was my re-enroll. That was, who was that again? Gosh, I'm sorry. There's so many people. Sydney's Canvas is still not working. Okay. Write this down. Sydney, will you have time to stick around for a few minutes after we're done? It was Caitlin, that was a re-enroll. Thank you, Taylor. But and then also And then it's going to look a little different for you guys, but you can go to your courses and you can see a list of all your courses in there. Like I said, it's going to look a little different for you guys, but it's part of the same thing. Where was I at here? We got you the grades and then people. Oh, student view. So this gives you a list of all your classmates. And I believe, let me see here, Chip O'Reilly. I thought there was an email address. Report inappropriate picture. So here's the list of all the people in the class with you. So just in case you need that. All right. So any questions on so far what we've covered? Questions, concerns, problems? I know Sydney, if Sydney can stick around. Oh, Sydney can email me. Okay. Sydney, what I want, if you get some free time, I'd like to Zoom so you can share your screen with me and I can see what's going on. But email me and tell me what the problem is, and maybe even send me a screenshot if you can. And if I can't fix it, I'll move it over to our Canvas lady, Kay Behar. She's really good. She's already fixed some stuff as well. So sorry. So anybody else? Questions, concerns,
I have a question.
complaint? Yes, ma'am.
For Cengage, do we have to make an account or do we already have an account?
You should already have an account. When you click on it, if you don't have an account, and it asks you to register using the same email address and usually password that you use for Canvas.
Do we have a code? Is there a code for your class?
Shouldn't be, not for this one. Only one I usually give a code out for is business math. It's done through Cengage, but it's done through the WebAssign platform, which is a completely different animal. So if you have problems, Giselle, just email me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? And Sydney said we can plan that. She'll email me. Awesome, Sydney. All right, Alicia, you've been through this before. Alexanne has. I'm trying to remember. Kelly has. Mark has. So we got some old timers here. So everybody's good. Yeah. The last thing I'm going to say before we cut this off is communication is the key. I had one more video. We'll cover it next time. Communication is the key. If you have any issues, shoot me an email, guys. Don't let it sit and become a problem and fester. And we don't need to make it more painful down the road. Okay, just handle problems as they come. Try to stay caught up. If you can't, for some reason, if you have issues, when you get to a point where you can email me and get a hold of me, yes, thank you, Kelly. I do what I can. She was happy with the getting through math. But you did well too, if I remember right. You did pretty good. But yeah, don't let it fester. Don't let it become an issue. I'm not saying, at 2 a.m. when you run into a ditch, I'm your first email. But at some point, maybe the next day, you should email me and say, hey, I'm in the hospital with a broken leg and I may need an extension. So, all right. Well, I'm going to stop recording, which means that's the end of class. You can bounce if you need to. If you need to stop and ask questions, I will be here for that until everybody leaves.